very generous of you. This bodes well for a wonderful afternoon, and thank you all very much for coming on behalf of PPL. It's a joy to be here, and especially on such a sunny day, although that does cause our technicians some problems. So thank you to everyone who's made this possible, but most especially to Babs and Laura Horton, who I know will be a very familiar face to many of you. Let's just have a show of hands. How many of you are actually familiar with Babs and Laura from other settings? So, yeah, quite a few. I thought there might be a few. So that's nice to be in amongst warm company, isn't it, when we're able to get together. Now, my job is to say as little as possible this afternoon, and to make sure that I give Babs and Laura the opportunity to say as much as possible. I'm going to do a very brief introduction, and I'm sure many of you will be quite familiar with some of these things that I'm going to say. And I do apologise, I'm going to use some notes because there are certain things that I really don't want to get wrong. Now, Babs, of course, is a patron here at PPL and has had a long history of being part of PPL, and we'll hear a little bit about that shortly. But started off in teaching and did a lot of work with pupil referral units, working as a home tutor with mentally ill young people, and was head of English in a children's and adolescent mental health service setting, where she was responsible for teaching and initiating a life skills programme, pastoral care and liaison with schools, parents and carers. A challenging role indeed, I'm sure, Babs. I love the fact, one of the things that I read was that she witnessed the power of literature in enhancing the experiences of fragile young people, helping them to challenge their thinking and move forward. That must be very rewarding indeed. At 49, your first novel was published to critical acclaim, a mere child, and then ran writing groups and workshops, because of course the life of an author is not very well funded, is it? So you have to find other things to do, like writing workshops. And Laura, I know, is also challenged by that situation. It's such a shame we don't pay our writers better, I think. And of course has continued to work as a writing mentor for young people in collaboration with Plymouth Libraries and our own literature works from the Southwest. And now continues to run workshops in life writing and creative writing, and I hope to get on one of them very soon. So thank you very much. Let's give Babs a round. And of course, she's very amazingly got this wonderful daughter who's sort of followed in her footsteps in terms of creative writing. The current Plymouth Laureate of Words, the first woman and playwright in that role. Her first play was Labyrinth Diet at the Space, which won an Ofcom award. Her second play, Breathless. How many of you have seen Breathless somewhere at the Theatre Royal in one of the various places it's been staged? What an amazing play. For those of you, we're going to hear a little extract later this afternoon, and for those of you who don't know about it, it really was a wonderful experience. And it's got a life, it's going on to other things. It's going to be touring to the Soho Theatre later in February, and then it's going to New York in the spring. So I think that deserves a round of applause, please. In 2020, Laura wrote and produced a short film called A Summer of Birds for the Plymouth Fringe, and again, the film won the Toast of the Fringe Award. She's listed in the Stage 100 in 2021 for her work lobbying and campaigning with her project Theatre Stories, which seeks to change public perceptions about who theatre is for. And that's very close to my heart. But we do have in this country this sort of hierarchy, don't we, of people who sort of seem to want to think that literature or theatre or all these sorts of arts things have got to be for other people, and actually they are truly for all of us. She's written journalistically for the Vogue, for the Guardian, for the Eye and for Huffington Post. So these are your speakers this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please give them a warm welcome. So I'm going to ask them a few questions. We're going to have a couple of extracts, and I hope that we will have some variety for you. So to begin straight away, I'm going to ask you about first got you into writing, your first memory, something that, what was it about books or whatever? Where did it all start for you?
I think it started, I moved to London when I was 3, and I lived in South Wales, and it was, even at 3, it was quite a cultural shock to me, because I thought I spoke English, and I didn't. I spoke Wenglish, which is a completely different language. And I was thinking about this morning, and I'll give you this. This is with the translation. This is English. Go up the hill, along the alleyway, past the co-op. But do be careful, because if he's been drinking alcohol, there'll be lots of noise, and he'll be shouting the odds, especially if he's having treatment for his lumbago. Wenglish would give it like this. You to go over the tump, go up the gully, past the co-op, and there you are. Mind how you go though. There's always a right shandy bang going on there, especially if he's been on the pop. I'm counting Belfargo or under the doctor on account of his body park. That's how I spoke. And then all of a sudden I was in the playground in London, speaking like this, and I can remember saying to a kid, do you want to come and be my friend and play me? And he said, what you talking like that for? I was like, I don't know. And by Friday, I was at a fully fledged Cockney, because nobody wants to be the outsider. Yeah, even at, I was 5 then when I went to school, but I didn't want to be the kid who was different. So I kind of, language was something that I could shift, I could move it like that. And it was at that time that I was either up a tree, I was a real tomboy, or I was reading a book. When I learned to read, it was the most magical thing for me. It was just like having a spell. It was like abracadabra, that all of a sudden you could drop yourself into worlds that you weren't part of. And we had a library in school. Those were the days when we had coal and we had libraries. And I lost myself in books. And I remember a kid saying to me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And everybody was nurses, doctors, bus drivers. And I was like, I want to write books. Kids' books, obviously, because I didn't think adults were worth writing for. And that was it. And I just always lost myself in books. I'm still the same now. Coming in here, it's just something you just want to take one off, don't you? You can escape, which is wonderful. And then the dreams take a long time to come to fruition. So it's a long time, 49, before I became a writer. It's worth waiting for.
Thank you, Naz. Thank you, Laura.
Well, I always loved storytelling, and I remember I was obviously very lucky to have a mum that's very creative, and she would push me around in the pram, and then you had loads of characters that you would do with different accents, and I thought they were real, and I loved that. And then I used to make up theatre shows. I used to devise theatre shows when I was about 5, and I would charge my mum and dad and their friends 50 pence each and perform these shows with them. So obviously that was there from a young age. I should do that now, really.
You should. Still waiting for a refund.
Yeah, my brother used to get involved, and he would do fart noises. And I would take it very seriously and have to stop the show. I would tell anybody off who was laughing, and then we'd continue. So yeah, it was always there, and I knew that I wanted to write from a really young age. But I didn't think novel. I thought, oh, I'll be a novel writer, because I didn't know that there were any other ways to write. And then, but it's just not the way. I'm quite a visual thinker, and then suddenly, like going to the theatre, I thought, well, it's plays. That's what I want to do. Plays and TV are my passion, I think.
Yeah, the shows in the early age, that probably gave you a hint. But interesting that we automatically think writer, novel.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And the lovely thing about playwright is that it's like not WRITE as GHT, because you're bringing something to life. It's like a shipwright, or I think it's this sort of lovely origin of the word. You're creating something for performance, not to be read.
I'm just going to check, because I'm aware of the fact that we aren't wired for sound today, and I just want to make sure, are the people in the back hearing all right? Do wave at me if you do have a problem. Wave at these folks, and we'll just up the level for you. Just wanted to check that before we went any further. So moving on then. So when and how did you first become aware of PPL?
I walked past it on North Hill for 20 years, and I thought, ooh, proprietary library, that sounds really posh. I think there was something like the Order of the Foresters along the way, or something like that, and I thought, well, they sounded kind of outside my experience. And then one day I thought, I'm just going to walk in. So I walked in, and behind the desk was a guy I used to teach with at Southwick, a guy called John Smith. So we had a conversation, and he said to me, "Oh, would you like to do a couple of shifts here when I go on holiday?" And I was like, "Oh no, I can't, I'm too busy." And then I went home and I said to my husband, John, "Oh, do you fancy doing that?" And that was it. And so John started working there. My mother-in-law really kindly bought me a year's ticket to come in. And then I found the travel section, like 1950s travel books, and I was just completely lost. I did loads of research, and we've all been members. We've been members ever since. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful place to. It's a kind of refuge, but also a source of inspiration. It's just lovely, isn't it? You can lose yourself in here, can't you?
I think there's a good plug there. So anyone who's here this afternoon, any of you who are members, do start thinking now. It's not too early to think about Christmas presents. I love the idea of actually buying a membership for someone and giving it away. What a brilliant idea. So, Laura, so this
just
was sort
through
of like
family, actually with my dad, because I was living in London at the time, I think, and so I think I came back a few times, and I needed some quiet to do some work, and I went to North Hill, and that kept coming. So yeah, it's lovely. I normally sit on the corner and just get on with it.
yes, there's a lovely. Don't tell everyone. They'll all know there's a lovely quiet corner out there.
And the Costa coffee is not London Costa coffee, is it, when you come in here? It's amazingly cheap.
So there we go. This is for those of you who may be new this afternoon. This is definitely a jewel. I've certainly seen it advertised in the papers as the unseen jewel in Plymouth. And we were talking a little bit earlier on, Babs, about libraries in general and the way in which they are disappearing at the moment.
I think the first time I went to a library, we'd moved from a house into a pub. My parents decided to run a pub, and we were in the middle of a town, really busy town, and my mum took me around and joined me up to the library. And I used to take 6 books out every week. That's what you were allowed to take out, and all sorts of books. And the librarian was a really miserable old maid, and she used to say, "You can't possibly have read all these books." And I said, "Yeah, I've read all of them." You wouldn't believe it. So she used to test me on them. And I got it right every single week. I said, yes. And it was all free. I mean, you could do all kinds of things in there. You could go, I lived in a pub, it's noisy, so when I was older and I wanted to do homework, I would go up to Neaston Library, or Wilston Library, where we were then, and you could just walk in for free, and you couldn't have coffee in those days, but you could sit and be yourself, and it's just something that we all, every child should be able to walk around the corner and go into a library. I won't get started politically, but it incenses me that we've closed libraries in Plymouth. And Stoke Library that I used to go to was, there were refugees in there with their kids, helping them to do their homework. There were people who didn't have computers applying for jobs. I used to take a little lad in who was in care that I was working with, who struggled to go anywhere, and the people there were really kind. And I just think this is a wealth, and this is a wealth that everybody deserves. And my biggest joy would be to get more and more young people to come in here, if we could kind of find bursaries or something to open this, to let this flourish, because it's something we can't lose. We cannot lose people's right to the knowledge. So it's a bit of a rant there, but
And I think you picked up on the fact that for writers, for anyone actually who's doing research, there is such a wealth here that actually isn't available anywhere else in Plymouth at the moment. So
no.
it's true. Now, I thought you might enjoy to hear some extracts from these people, from their writing, which I thought would be quite a joy this afternoon. So I'm going to get these in the right order. We're going to start off with an extract. I said it would be nice to have something from your early writing. Now, obviously, that's a different kettle of fish for Babs than it is for Laura. So, Babs, you've brought us something from your... Now, get this right. This is from the first short story book, novel, short story.
Short story.
Short story, yes. Which won, of course, because it won the Hortons Short Story Award and the Rhys Davies. Rhys Davies. So it's called Colouring Mother.
Yeah.
And is there anything you'd like to say about what it was about, why you chose it, or what it was about why you wrote it?
I think this is the kind of short story that kicked me into writing the novel. I knew I had to move into novel writing. This story was very dear to me because my mum at the time was losing her sight, so colour was very, very important. I used to buy, like, if she came to stay, I'd buy a really bright, vivid tablecloth because she could see some colours. Blue she could still see. So colour was really important, and the mother obviously went together. So I wrote this, and it won the Honiton short story competition, and then it was 5 of us were in an anthology called the Rhys Davies, which was a big Welsh prize. And I also met E.V. Thompson. Anybody remember E.V. Thompson from Cornwall? Yeah, got loads of his books here. He was writing, kind of helping writers, and I had to go down to Loo Library, and you were given like 15 minutes with a great writer, and mine was with him, and he was really encouraging, and he said to me, don't stop writing, you have to carry on. And so this is an extract from Colouring Mother. She's colouring her mother. For this daily act of worship, she uses her special paint box. Soon, holes will grow in the paint, worn thin by constant use. For mother is always painted in pastel colours. Pinks and lilacs, pale lemon and watery aquamarine. She's coloured her mother so many times before. These portraits are the product of her dreams, figments of her imagination. She's never seen her mother. But she knows that wherever she is, mother will be the eggshell blue of a racing sky, the pink flush of the dawn, as dusky as evening lavender. Only in her nightmares, mother is painted differently. She's red and black, bright blue, green. Don't keep asking your father's questions about your mother, dear, Aunt Lydia tells her with a querulous voice. It makes him see red. Mentioning her name is red rag to a bull, Nanny tells the new kitchen maid in hushed tones. As time passes, she colours her mother differently. She wears more holes in the paint box. The pastel-painted lady has green fingers. The green becomes used up, and the black. Her mother is a black sheep, so says Aunt Lydia. And the families, those that have not gone to war, echo the same. Her father should never have married a foreigner, murmured the household. There are holes worn thin in the arrays of blue in her paint box. Blue, blue for murder. Blue murder if you mentioned her name. Purple and violet she never uses, for purple is the colour of the Lenten altar cloth. Purple is denial. Purple is wistful, waiting and yearning. And violet, violet is the end of the rainbow and unattainable. The house and the servants whisper colours and paint a different picture. Her father is a jealous man, green for jealousy, quite mad at times, a scullery maid whispers. Black and blue, hit her black and blue, they say. Moses parted the Red Sea. Red as blood, blood is thicker than water. She knows that seas separate her from mother, buoyant seas that kiss golden shores, seas that bubble with silver fish and echo with mermaid songs. And then the tide changes. At the end of the war, the servants are all gone. Her father lies in a field where crimson poppies will grow. The child needs her mother, Aunt Lydia laments for the first time. She can't stay here shut up in the house with me. The sea is not aquamarine or blue or shimmering turquoise. It is black and grey with slime green veins. On the boat, the drone of the engines runs through her bones, and salt water slops in her insides. She drowns in salt tears until anchors and ropes tie them to a foreign shore, and the pull of the English tide is too weak and tired to draw them back. And they're spilled down the gangplank, shoals of nervous travellers, open-mouthed and white around the gills.
How does it feel reading that?
It felt quite emotional actually, because I haven't read that or thought of it for a long time, but I think at the time it was a very raw time for me. Knowing that my mother, the world was disappearing to my mother, and really my mother was disappearing from me. So it was a kind of very heartfelt piece. We'd also started to travel to Spain quite a lot then, so you'll see where she lands, and she ends up, her mother's actually in Spain. So it was kind of twofold stories about loss and colour, but also about travel and the opening up of new colours and new worlds. And so yeah, it's quite a emotional piece.
And a really good example of how a piece of writing, I was just, even as you were reading it, I was thinking, I was like, oh, I could imagine using this with a creative writing group and sort of using that as a jumping off point. And I think the more authentic the writing, the better it works for those sorts of writing experiences.
And paint boxes always have, I don't know if you remember this, the marvellous colours. When we were kids, there would be like magenta and burnt sienna and all these kind of wonderful colours. And those as well, those kind of magical names. And kids always wear holes in colours they like the best, don't they? You were always like blues and turquoise, weren't you? You know, you wore the holes and, oh no, the paint's disappearing. So, well, writing's quite physical, isn't it? You know, you kind of think of colours and mixing things and that. So.
Yeah. Now this is going to be quite a leap, and as an interviewer I have no idea how to make a link here, because when I asked Laura what she would like to read for us, so it's sort of, I think between us we're really excited about Breathless.
Yeah, no, I'm still quite new to write. I mean, I've written bits and bobs, I've written a bit of poetry, I've written a few plays now, but this is like the first one really.
This is the one, isn't it? This is the one that's taken
But it's a
on.
monologue, and it's sort of, I mean, obviously the actor can do it much better than me, but yeah, it's also personal.
And did you, for future, are you going to carry on writing monologues? Is that something that you really want to do?
I've just finished a new play which has 4 characters in it, and it's quite surreal, because I think it's important to show that you can write other things. I've written 2 monologues now, and I'm sure I'll go back to it. And I'm also writing for television now, or starting to write for television, so it's like I need to start showing my breadth.
Yes.
If I want to have longevity, I think,
Yes.
in the industry, or make it my career.
Yes.
Which is what I want to do.
Absolutely. I think you're doing very well in terms of the and I'm sure I can hear the nods of agreement. So Breathless.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about the background to Breathless?
Yeah.
A little bit for those of us who haven't, those people who haven't seen it maybe.
I was asked to write 3. If I wanted to present 3 short plays at Theatre Hall Plymouth, so I had 2 that one I'd already put on in London, 20-minute plays, and one was a 3-hander, one was 2 characters, and I thought it would make sense to have the 3rd one be a monologue. So I only had 2. I had about 2 or 3 hours to write it. So I just whacked out this monologue about a woman who'd moved back to Devon, having lived in London, exploring her bisexuality at a slightly later stage, and also uncovering the fact that she was a hoarder, and that the media narratives of that had been so extreme that she hadn't been able to recognise herself within that. And so that's where it came, and then it just resonated. It seemed to resonate with people, and it got a little bit of attention, and so I was invited to apply for the Theatre Hall Plymouth Pleasance partnership to take it to Edinburgh, and it won that. And then I had to write it as a 60-minute piece. I didn't have very long, so it's all happened in a year.
Wow.
And then Vogue was off the back of that, and now I write for them regularly. All these things sort of snowballed from it, and it's been really interesting having a lot of people with quite extreme hoarding tendencies have come to the show. Other people who are just recognising perhaps they have too much stuff. So it's been, and now we're talking about turning it. We've had meetings at the Universal Studios about turning it into a TV drama. So it's been, I don't know what will happen, but it's been very exciting.
What a journey.
Yeah, just within years.
Did you know anyone who, because when I went to see it, I went to see it because I had somebody in the family who knew a hoarder and wanted to understand more, so they actually told me about it and said, will you come with me? And when I watched it, it was one of those things where you sort of think, now is this the actor, or is this sort of self-written, because I didn't pick up a brochure, a programme at the time, because it did come over as this was, the acting was so good, but the acting is only good if the writing is good. We all know that. There's no doubt. As an actor, I can tell you, the acting is only as good as the writing. So was that something? Was it an experience or something that
It was
made
based
you
on my
change?
own experience.
It was.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I kind of got to a point with I had just had thousands of clothes that I'd collected or bought. I remember I was a PR, and I remember volunteering for vintage shops for free clothes and things like that, just amassed. And then when I moved home, it was awful. But it wasn't like the hoarding SOS, but I couldn't get into my house.
Yes,
it wasn't like to the ceiling, but I knew it was bad, and it was affecting my life.
Yeah.
And I just thought I really want to write something that looks at the sliding scale of the problem, because it's like that with all mental health. I think you only see the extremity of it, and those programs on Channel 5 are awful. They're just, I think anyway, they're just kind of taking the mick out of people and presenting people with hoarding behaviours as dirty and often mad, and I don't think it's very helpful. So.
And that is one of the problems we do have with media in a way. I don't mean to mass all media together by any means, but there is that sense in which we are so into sensationalism that we just look for extremes.
Yeah, and I've just written an article for The Observer that's coming out in a couple of weeks for the magazine, and that was sensitively done. I wrote it, and then the picture editor was like, "Can I come over to your house and like photograph you with all your hoarding?" And I was like, it's no. You can come to my house, but like I don't want it to be visualised. And actually, when we staged Breathless, I didn't want a set. I thought it's important that we don't show what people perceive hoarding to look like, because it's not helpful. Again, because you can have a hoarded home and run around tidying it up, shoving things away, make it look presentable for people. Absolutely. And then it'd be chaos.
Don't jump this way. Before I ask Laura to read the section that she's going to read, I just want to put a small warning in here, because for those of us who have seen it, we do know there is some bad language in certain parts of it, and I want Laura to feel free. Well, we want Laura to feel free to read it as it is, I think, don't we? But maybe
I haven't picked a particular
I'll slap her.
I did do a talk recently, and there was there's no C words, don't worry, but there was a few people tutted up.
We won't tap, will we?
We can. In my second week in London, walking home with a bag of discounted food, I noticed a glittery sign with an arrow, sample sale 10 metres. I followed the arrow to a glass box space with fairy lights and rows of clothes in every shape, colour and style imaginable. I stepped inside and a glass of Prosecco was thrust into my hand. Free fizz, get on. A diffuser chuffed out tangerine scents, jazz music wafted out of a small speaker. It was quiet too. I began eyeing up the aisles and doing a few laps before I tucked in. I picked up a long blue lace dress with a cape. It was love at first sight. I was starving for this dress. I looked at the label, £475, fuck no. I decided to try and get away with one more glass of Prosecco and leave. Just before I did though, I spotted a poster on the wall, a wall chart with coloured dots and prices. Yellow, £60, blue, 40, pink, 20, white, 10. I looked at the label on this lace dress, pink. This dress was £20. I could not believe how much money I would be saving if I bought this dress. Then I saw a cream tulle skirt twinkling, glitter boobs, willies and fannies embellished it. I threw it over my arm. Then I saw a floor-length coat with an applique red bow and arrow and a pair of high-waisted electric blue skater trousers. Then I spied another amazing thing and another, and I knew exactly where I'd wear each item and exactly how I'd feel when I did. I left that first sale with 5 bags of clothes, heart full and tingling. That night I danced around my little bedroom, unable to believe my luck. I was on my way. After a while though, my room in London became a carefully constructed maze. Spare bits of floor became storage solutions, my desk was stacked to the ceiling with books, hundreds of nails tapped badly into the walls held hangers which held more and more clothes. It was a smallish room with a Victorian fireplace and 2 double wardrobes, both stuffed to the brim. I rarely invited anyone in, and by rarely I mean never. My housemates never poked their heads in. I'd always go to friends' places, stay over at boyfriends. My bedroom was a space for me, a room packed with trinkets and treasures that charted my life from newborn to now. I didn't want anyone intruding on that. And then one day when I was lying on my bed watching videos of mini things made out of felt, the door opened. Fucking hell, Soph. I jumped and toppled off the pile of clothes I'd been balancing on. I was knocking, but you didn't hear. My friend Kevin stood in the doorframe. If that fell on you, you could die. He gesticulated to a floor-to-ceiling shoe holder, which teetered dangerously under the weight of double of the shoes it was advertised to hold. He picked up a daisy-hemmed purple cotton dress that wouldn't pull down past my chest. I'd drunkenly tried it on last week and nearly got stuck. A dress I vowed to wear one day, like so many things in this room, like pretty much everything in this room. He said he'd come over to drop off a book he'd borrowed, but had really come to moan about a bad date. We never ended up talking about his love life though. Instead, the shock on his face prompted something deep and unwelcome in the pit of my belly.
Thank you. How do you find it reading it yourself as opposed to watching it with
Oh, I don't like reading it. I'm shy. I really struggle. It's so much nicer having actors because they're so good. They're so adept at,
I think that's quite an issue for writers in general, actually, because I mean, one of the reasons you start writing quite often is, I think the more introverted amongst tend to write, whereas the more extroverted tend to become actors and then get into writing because you want to say things that nobody else is writing for you. But yes, I don't think that's an unusual situation. No. Now, this is the point at which we're about halfway through this afternoon, and this is the point at which I want to give you all a warning, because it will be really nice to give you a chance to have a short question and answer time. So I thought if I warn you now, before we hear the next piece, then people have got a little bit of time to think. Otherwise, we tend to find that somebody starts to think and they're thinking out loud as they're trying to work out what their question's going to be. So you've got a few minutes to think, and we'll have a short question and answer time, if that's okay with you, Katie. But I thought it would be really nice to hear Laura and Babs wrote a piece together, I understand, for the Theatre Royal's 40th anniversary in 2022. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
So James Mackenzie Blackman, who is the CEO, quite new CEO, phoned me and said, would you be interested in writing this poem? And I was like, oh, okay, because I'm not a poet. But he said he wanted it to rhyme, and like, I know a lot of poets that were like, I'm not doing that, because they're snotty about rhyming poetry. But he said he wanted to chart like the history of the theatre, and I was like nearly said no because I thought like the imposter syndrome, and then I said yeah, okay, but it might be nice to get other poets on board, and I did initially try to get 4 poets, and then they dropped. One never got back to me, and then one dropped out really last minute. And then I thought, actually, I'll do it with my mum. And so I sort of said, and he was like, yeah, it was so nice because he just trusted me. And I feel like that really helps, with creativity, when you just know someone knows you can do it. And I haven't really had that before. He's amazing man. And so we had to sit down, and I'd said I want to write it from the perspective of an usher, because I was an usher, that's where I started, and they don't get a lot of credit. They're the people that you see when you go into the theatre. They do a lot of work, and I just think that would be nice to honour them and the people that work there. So we did that, and then it was right in the middle of me doing Edinburgh Festival with Breakfast, which I was also producing. So we just like battered it back and forth, didn't we?
We only had one row.
Yeah,
in the middle of town.
It was the first time we met. Yeah. Well, yeah, it was in the middle of town.
we didn't have very long to do it, and you went to Edinburgh, and so we were kind of battering things. You get that panic at the beginning, can we do this, and then we did remarkably, because we just emailed things to each other, changed things and sent them back. And what we really wanted to do was push the idea of the usher, because because you've been an usher, and also people in theatres who do those really important jobs very often get forgotten. But we also wanted to kind of showcase Plymouth as a place, because I just think, I didn't come from Plymouth, but I am so proud of Plymouth, and I think it's beautiful. And sadly, it's a Cinderella city sometimes. It doesn't get as much as extra in other places. But I just think it's a wonderful place, and not enough is made of it, is it? I don't think that. So that's where we came from on that. And then I didn't see it because I was in France, but you saw it.
It's really good. Yeah, it was on the main stage, and it was sort of interspersed with. There was an amazing director called Matthew Zia that came, who's really incredible. And then it was interspersed with it's called Pantomime Dame,
Christopher Biggins.
different things, and everyone, the audience were on the stage, and it was just the main stage. It was really lovely, so yeah, it was special to be a part of that. And they printed off copies of it, which I think is still in the printable foyer, which was really nice.
Would we like to hear a bit?
I think we
would. As much as we possibly can.
Me first?
You go first.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Take a fistful of stars, throw into the night sky, season with velveteen bats and watch them fly.
Sprinkle with frost, add the pinch of an owl, the wily bark of a fox and a cat on the prowl.
A night broth on simmer under a silvery moon, a plate on a conjurer's stick that spins to a midnight tune.
This our dreaming ocean city, the barbican exhaling history, weed and ivy bind the cracks, ancient modern secret mystery.
Chip stuffed gulls on chimney stacks, mermaid songs from Firestone Bay, dolphins plumb the inky waters, the silky slither of a seal at play.
In darkened doors lovers kiss, skinny dippers stir the waters, dark and sleek in Tinside pool, songs of brave Argyle supporters.
A lobster in his restaurant tank dances with his own reflection, a ghost in New Street sobs for a lover's cruel rejection.
Stella Maris in her lofty niche with prayers and many a plea, waiting for her sailor boys lost long ago at sea.
Down in Davy Jones's locker, bones as white as marble now, never will they trim the mainsail, watch the waves from stern or prow.
Hear the footfall on the steps as the hungry ocean heaves, willing pilgrims set their sail and the Mayflower sighs and leaves.
But listen now for Beryl's girls, as they teeter on their heels, wobbles on the cobbles, their laughter raucous squeals.
As they stumble past the dolphin, they know the night is young, that all this world's a stage, their many songs unsung.
Smeaton's tower blinks as the wash of daylight dawns. Over in misty Mutton Cove, King Billy wakes and yawns.
New light whispers through the city, hear the chime of Derry's clock, the windows of the Guildhall glow, and the Britannia in Millbay Dock.
The theatre opens to test acoustics, and 4 women stand proud and tall to sing sometimes side by side, audience breath bated in the stalls.
Soon more excited crowds will gather, noisy folk and school kids grinning. The royal princess pulls the curtain, stage door opens on a new beginning.
I've started a job in the theatre today. Not a proper job, my father said. None of that grease paint and rouge, your lips painted scarlet and red.
Don't be a dreamer, head in the clouds. Become a trained nurse, a busy barista, a steady job that pays the rent, or teach like your sensible sister.
You've got me wrong, I said and grinned. No treading the boards or blusher. I want to work behind the scenes. I'm off to be an usher.
And off I sailed on the 40 bus through Mannermead, Mutley Plain, down North Hill past the Polly, up Royal Parade in the rain.
I'm full of nerves and unprepared, but full of good intent. I've got my luncheon uniform, clean pants in case of accident.
There's a handbook just for ushers that shows us what to do. Aisle 5, seat 6, madam, and this way to the loo.
I'm here to meet and greet you and settle seat disputes, in charge of lost and found and emergency exit routes.
My job's to make your visit smooth with torch and tact and poise. I sell programmes at the start and try to curb the noise.
I'm excellent at soothing fears and to your seats escorting, but my beady eyes are on you to prevent undue cavorting.
And in the intermission, midst the usual toilet trek, I'll be standing at the front with a tray around my neck.
I sell delicious ice cream tubs to mums and dads and kids. I must have said 1,000,000 times, the spoon is in the lids.
You'll never guess the things I find, the stuff that folks mislay, intimate gadgets, handkerchiefs, and once a brassiere 36 AA.
I pick up litter when you've gone from your seat and underneath, wrappers, crisps and sandwiches, on occasion someone's teeth.
But when the curtain rises and you're cosy in your places, I marvel at the wonder on your expectant faces.
Cocooned here in the darkness, your cares will disappear. Hopes and dreams and fantasies will chase away the fear.
Worlds anew will soon unfold, transport you to the past. The future are the foreign lands making memories that last.
You'll lose yourself in Elsinore with lovers in old Verona, deep in a wood in Athens, in Venice with Desdemona.
I hear your feet are tapping, watch Granny shed a tear, while Grandpa sings with gusto to cats, blood brothers, mum near.
Father, what were you thinking? Are you off your flipping head? Gran thought it'd play about the Queen. Regina monologues, you
I've not seen puppets like that before. Avant-garde, I must suppose. I was expecting Orville the Duck, not men without their clothes.
Ballerinas in feathered plumes flock down the corridor, engulfing a comedian attempting the exit of stage door.
That was blooming marvellous. How do they dance like that? Learn all those lines, amazing. Next year I want to be the pantomime cat.
I listen to your fading talk as you head off to the bar, the long walk home, the bus, the coach, a taxi or your car.
I love the days when schools arrive, rucksacks brimming, ties undone, eyes alight and faces glowing, eager for a day of theatre fun.
Chip-chop, keep up, hush now, says Miss with a weary smile. Where's Ryan? Oh, there you are. Please stay in your crocodile.
Listen up, sir, says Sir, fingers to lips. Pipe down now, Joe and Molly. Remember what I said, you can't climb in that woman's trolley.
The naughty ones are close to Miss, under her roving eye. Sir's ears peeled for the rustle of crisps or the hiss of a wimple nearby.
There's an energy among them, their eyes are all ablaze. Shuffle, rustle, curtain up, mouths open, steady gaze.
Transported to a blustery day, Tigger, Piglet, Winnie the Pooh, flying with Mary Poppins, swift visits to the loo.
The secondary schools are on their way, on a train down from Torquay, a minibus from Tavistock and a coach from Buckfastleigh.
I listen to the scurrying feet, their voices high and low, teachers hissing warnings and rushing to and fro.
Here's Sean, all fresh of face, Hamlet in his blazer, the Romeo of year 11, awash with charm, links, a chewed up eraser.
There's Juliet in her rucked up skirt, with knee-length socks and kickers, smelling of Charlie and chewing gum, flask of cider in her knickers.
That Ophelia is a bit too wet, Mrs. Macbeth a proper cow. I'd like to be Amelia, Beatrice, Rosalind or Viola now.
Sean snuggles up to Juliet, elbow to elbow, knee to knee, but her heart is lost to Laertes. Push off, Sean, can't you see?
Keeping an eye, torch on hand, I watched them all with glee. There's no funny business, they're all caught, transported, it's plain to see.
Suddenly I've been here for decades. How on earth did I get here? The uniforms have altered, swipe cards, auditorium, brands of beer.
Thought I'd only stay a while, get a steady shop job, but I'm smitten with drama, I'm addicted, simply cannot stop.
Night after night I dance with swans, with plie and pirouette, pas de deux and arabesque, working up a sweat.
I'm Mimi in Paris looking for light, I'm feisty Brummelhilda, Tosca Carmen Leonore, or perhaps I'm Bob the Builder.
I'm Billy Elliot dancing the streets, the boy in the striped pyjamas. I'm upside down in Kafka, having a ball with funky llamas.
I'm Shirley talking to a rock, cooking chips and eggs in a bar, or Rita reading Ferlinghetti, no good boyo on the Zanzibar.
Every time I think of leaving, another wonderful show comes up. I have a moving conversation, a belly laugh, I realise in my heart I'm stuck.
And on my days off I still come to watch shows, a patron just like you. I see Quadrophenia 4 times, I just really like the Who.
I love new writers in the drum, love song, The Green Man, Mercury Fur, post-show Q&As and conversations, the rush as you feel the collective stir.
The seasons alter outside, spring awakening, summer nights, Slava's snow show, singing in the rain, but nothing changes inside, the joy remains the same.
The theatre spreads its wings, on the estuary pops up TR2, bronze pods and huge windows, prop sets and costumes all new.
I walk along the river between rocks and rehearsal rooms, people's company playing in one, in another the building of Egyptian tombs.
Companies say they love to come here, the beauty of walking to work by the sea, the quick trek up the Hoe, eating sandwiches with that view and drinking tea.
The lab opens for experimentation, a space for new work to take flight, creating the theatre of tomorrow, often running late into the night.
Other things happen while I work here. I fall in love with a Chianti at the bar. She works in the costume department. Her passion is dressing the stars.
We swap stories over breakfast together, who's lovely, who's an absolute arse, who got off with who at the panto party, the real life green room farce.
We whistle down the wind together as time moves us all on. A theatre rebranding from blue to red, some original people now gone.
She's coming here at daybreak, arriving by the sea on a barge. She's fashioned in bronze and amazingly quite large.
She's brought on a lorry right up Royal Parade. She's potent and powerful and not one bit afraid.
I love it, says a woman. Ugly, says a chap. And hundreds of children wave their flags and clap.
And a small girl looks at me, eyes alive and bright. Imagine, she says, if she comes alive at night.
Sometimes when I'm in my bed, I imagine Bianca waking, walking past St Andrews, stepping over Dingles, overtaking.
On through Derriford Rowborough to stretch her legs on the moors, dip her toes in the icy river, cartwheel over Tors.
Our messenger guarding the building, ready for children to run under her legs, stance strong and poised, no nonsense, here to stay, a beacon of strength.
And the world turns on its axis, the theatre forced to close its doors. Sad decisions are made for its future, lights out, curtains closed, untrod floors.
Digital takes on new meaning, workshops and meetings on Zoom, dusty and dark auditoria, no one knows how to navigate gloom.
I find myself sad during lockdown, the connections to theatre almost shot. I worry for its beautiful future, and if I'm honest, that I'll be forgot.
I watch things online, read the play texts, dream of greeting audiences back in. I send in my theatre story, try to quiet my brain's din.
As we emerge very slowly, masked up for NDT2, it feels weird and wonderful to be back here. Collective crying as we exit the loom.
Shows are taken to schools with flying colours, all groups resume face to face, people just glad to be together, back feeling inspired in the space.
The CEO waves goodbye after decades, a new one arrives to take lead, planning and preparing the next stage, ascertaining what communities need.
Sometimes people leave, they may find other ways, the theatre may change on the outside, but the heartbeat and ethos still stays.
Hold the sun like an orb, spin it 4 times in your hand, pepper with rain and watch the rainbows land.
Feel your chest heave as you sit here, monitor the speed of your breath, enjoy the suspension of reality, forget we're all moving towards death.
On my first ever shift at the theatre, I was told heartbeats sync up in the dark. It will be the same as your neighbour, that knowledge. I think it's beautifully stark.
Tonight is my last shift as an usher. I'm weighed down with retirement gifts. So don't forget your bags, phones, dentures. Please warmly leave us as out you drift.
Thank you for coming this evening, for sharing the 40th year. Let's look ahead to the next chapter and remember to ask your audit.
Wow, somebody said it, I heard it, wow.
And it was sort of peppered with, there's a bit obviously clear breaks there. You can have like a dancer in at one point when we talk about, so it's sort of different performances happening.
And was it wonderful to hear shows that you remembered, even Slav Snow, still sticks in my mind. How was it collaborating? How was it?
It was really good fun, wasn't it? It was nerve-wracking at first because you know you're not in the same place. It's nice to be in the room together, but we kind of got used to. And I always say when I work with young writers, don't assume that you're going to be earning millions of pounds and swallowing it around the south of France, because most writers are jobbing writers. You write, you do the same now. You work for 3 months to buy yourself 3 months off, and you take all kinds of jobs. Some you want, some you don't. So as well as being creative, it's a job. So if someone asks you to do it and they're paying you to do it, then you say it will be done. And we didn't have long, we did a couple of weeks to do it. And so we were under pressure. But it was really good fun, wasn't it? And, Laura knows much more about theatre than me. I knew the kind of things about taking kids to the theatre, all the specs and strains of taking the attendants in and what they get up to. You knew more about the shows, and you were an usher, didn't you?
Asking about like you have to tell people all the time. We just remembered.
Yeah, so it was really nice. It was fun. I'd like to do it again.
We're going to invite something
We are.
together.
We're going to do a play together.
I had to write down Cinderella City, which you mentioned before you started that, about being proud of Plymouth, because I think there's something in Cinderella City. I'm going to take that away with me this afternoon. We have a few minutes now. I have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask these folks before we finish about plans for the future. So we've only got a couple of minutes, but I just wondered if anybody was sitting there with a burning question that they would love to ask Babs or Laura or both of them. This is where we go. Yes.
Well, two questions. One, were you given a length, a number of words or a number of lines?
For which piece?
For this?
For the usher.
You were told 20 minutes?
20 minutes, yeah.
Oh, so time.
Yeah.
And how did you fit your stanzas together? Did you decide to do one and then the other do the next? How did you plan to do it? Because it's terribly long.
Yeah, we came up with the idea, and then I think we wrote the first little bit together, then you went away, came up with some things, sent it to me, then I added to it, and we just went like that. We just went back and forth like that.
And then we said, oh, let's change that bit, or let's not, we're not brutal with each other, but we know each other well enough to tell the truth, so we'll say, I don't think that bit, and yeah, it was fun.
Thank you. There's another hand. Another hand went up at the same time, yes.
Hi Babs, so I just wondered, do you actually speak and were you exposed to as a child the Welsh national tongue?
No. Where I lived in South Wales, it's very diverse. It goes back to Merthyr was full of Spaniards, Italians, Tredegar was full of. My family came from Ireland in the potato famine, the Great Hungers, as my family was called. They came over on boats to Newport. They were called the mud crawlers. They crawled up the banks. They were very often let down by the people, and so in that part of Wales it was diverse, and there were lots of different tongues. Very Catholic area, so Latin was probably the one everybody knew. When you went to mass, we all knew the Latin together. You weren't allowed, far before my time, people in Wales were not allowed to speak Welsh. They were punished for it. They were slapped. They were not allowed to speak Welsh. So we ended up being kind of the Wenglish language. So it's peppered with Welsh. So words like tup, which my kids will use. Tup means somebody who's not quite right in the head. A cwtch is a cuddle, which is nicer than a cuddle, isn't it? So it's English peppered with Welsh language. You'd occasionally hear a farmer in the post office talking Welsh, but really Welsh had died out. You had to go much further west, or very small tight farming communities. Cardiff then, began the revival of Welsh-speaking schools and things like that. But no, it was a lost language to us. It was peppered with Irish expressions and Italian expressions, and that, yeah.
Thank you.
James.
Sorry, James.
I was wondering, will you pay a set amount for that poem, or do you get a bit for each sort of leaflet itself?
And they doubled it, didn't they? Did they double it? Did they make an offer and then double it?
I think they made an offer when they thought there were going to be 4 writers.
Yeah.
And then, I can't remember what.
No, they upped it, didn't they? Upped it at some point.
Would you remember the names of the writers as well? Was Ferry one of them?
No.
No, I don't know any of the names. People very often don't like rhyming. They kind of see it as doggerel. Like as I said, if you're writing somebody, if they say that's what they want, that's what you give them.
I know they do a lot to promote free writing and stuff at the theatre groups and stuff. Yeah. We're doing a course there down in Chicago now, which is about poetry. We're going to we looked at doing sonnets last time. We're going to be looking at doing rhyming stuff and stuff in the future. Yeah, because that's kind of what I can do.
Yeah, it's really a good example.
Yeah.
So I have one more question. Thank you very much for your questions, folks. I have one more question really for each of you. It's one question in 2 parts. Your future, what's next?
I'm trying to finish a novel that's slow in the making, but I will get there. I had a play on in the lab a couple of months ago called In the Lady Garden, and we sold out, which went really well, and the feedback was great. So I had a meeting with Theatre Royal last week, and they've been absolutely brilliant, and I'm going to be working with them with the dramaturg, and that's going to be put on again, with talks of it going on a tour and possibly in the drums, so that's to look forward to. And then we are writing a play together about Anira Bevan, who is one of my great heroes, and from Tredegar, where I grew up, and all the kind of stories that Laura grew up with, a small girl. So we're going to write that together, and I'm revising a couple of plays, one called Girl Factory and one called Wings. So for the minute, that's
yeah. So I suspect from that you'd like to have several projects on the go at the same time.
Yeah, it's bonkers, but it's quite nice. Because when I work full time, I was in a CAMS unit, so you can imagine it's quite lively, and I found I worked better on the edge. And when I moved into the university, which was lovely, but it was just so nice, And I mean, I remember the first morning there, I kind of got to 10 o'clock and I thought, oh God, nobody's told me to F off yet, it's 10 o'clock. Nobody's thrown a plate at me or done something. And I did miss that working on the edge. I've always liked that. I still do lots of work like that now. I've always liked that, having to work really hard in one area, because in some ways then the creative side comes in as a kind of balance too. But, yeah. I like people as well, I like being amongst people.
Thank you. And Laura, we heard a little bit there about the future for Breathless.
Yeah, so Breathless is going to be ongoing, I think. So Soho Theatre, then New York, then possibly Mumbai, but I won't know yet. And then it's going to go on a UK tour, I think. And then I want to adapt it for television in some way. I'm doing a TV writing thing at the moment. I'm on commission with Theatre of Plymouth, so I'm writing a play with them. And I'm still in my laureateship, so we're going to be doing, I did an audio project for the box. It's like a 15-minute play that'll be free that people can listen to in St Luke's about the stained glass window. So that's going to be, it was supposed to be at the end of February, but they're pushing it back now to spring. But the box will announce that, I think, and that'll be nice. And then teaching and trying to find funding for other plays. It's such a difficult to know how to proceed really, but just sort of trying to balance working and writing and.
Yeah, so the writing is definitely it's the journey.
I'm just going to go for it now. Yeah. I'm 40 this year, and I really want to I don't want to do PR anymore, so I'm just.
Is that what you were in PR?
Yeah, I was in PR for 15 years.
Yeah.
But I'm doing other projects, so I think the PR brain has been useful with Breathless, for example. So I got funding to do a project called Hidden by Things. So it's a podcast about hoarding behaviours, which will be coming out on the 20th of January. So talk to different people. So Paul Cooper, who was in Our Country or This Country, the comedy series. And I talked to different people who are at sort of different levels of hoarding behaviours. So that's going to come out. And then I'm doing this project with Shekinah Mission on Mutley, also in London, and online. And we're talking about discarding of clothes. It's quite hard for people, especially if there are stories or your social history attached. So we're creating labels with a website on, so people can send in the story of the item, tack in the label, and then send it to the charity shop, so that whoever buys it will find the story.
So they're buying the history as well as the item.
Yeah. So
the podcast coming out on the 20th of January. Where's that going to be available?
On Spotify and sort of other platforms, and then the event will be at Shekinah Mission from 10 till 1 on the same day, so people can bring, encouraging people to bring an item with a story attached. So I'll collect the story, give them a label, and then otherwise you'll do it online, so we'll get people to do it.
Now I know I said to Laura that she was going to bring some Breathless texts for anybody who would like to buy those. Unfortunately, we don't have them here today, but if anybody is interested, if anybody is interested in having a copy of the entire text, then I'm sure we can take a list, take names today, and get them down here for you and sort that out. Babs, you do have some books with you.
I do.
And you do have Winter Swallows and also Holy Mackerel. So if you'd like to have a look at books later on, I'm sure Babs will be happy
There's
to
£2 off the recommended price.
I'm going to have 2 books in my bag, I can tell you. And my final question to finish, because you obviously, as we heard at the beginning, you have a long history with PPL. So your hopes, your dreams, as patron, as a long-time supporter of PPL, what would you like to see for PPL in the future?
I'd like to see loads of young people coming through the doors. I'd like probably a link with schools, probably more youngsters coming in and running things here. So I don't want, like when I ran a writing group, I always said we wouldn't charge for it because I didn't want any kid to be excluded from coming. It'd be nice to kind of, I don't know, set up some bursaries or give a prize, some prizes of some tickets to young people in schools for, say, maybe a creative writing competition or something like that, so that we get those kids, and maybe for kids who don't have very much, because there's a lot of poverty around, and I think it would be quite a nice thing in a way to do a creative writing competition open anonymously, and then a prize could be a ticket to a year's thing for the proprietary library, or so many days a year or something like that. So I just want more people to see it, more people to come in, so that it carries on throughout the generations too. We can't lose it, it's too precious. And we've got to keep that access to books open to kids everywhere. That'd be my...
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that. Louise, quite hard to add.
I love that, yes.
There was a point where because I guess I love reading, but I love reading plays, and people don't tend to consume plays in the same way, but I got a donation for Central Library for here from Concord Theatricals and Payne's Plough, and so we got loads of plays sent here, and I have been trying to tell people who were interested in reading plays, but it hasn't. So it would be nice if people came here and thought to maybe read plays and talk about it, and
Play reading.
play reading.
We've read plays together for a laugh, and we've done it as a family. And we did it, John, didn't we, when one Christmas with Jack and his girlfriend and Laura and Mrs. Gig there, all read parts. And it was great for me as a writer to hear them reading it, but we had such a good laugh as well. It's quite a good thing to do with your mates, get a play and read it for the evening.
Both. You know that the U3A once a month do a play reading thing at the Central Library.
I did not know that.
I didn't know
There we go,
that.
you see? There we go. There's a plug for you, 3A, and play reading.
And the writing group that meets here,
Yes, the writing group that meets
we
here
did the script like yesterday,
monthly,
fortnightly.
Fortnightly.
I'm trying to make it weekly.
Friday afternoon,
Friday mornings.
Friday mornings. Friday
Every
mornings. So,
alternate Friday morning. Yeah.
so and all I will say is on the website, so do look that up. And lots of exciting ideas for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Would you please give a big round of applause to Babs and Laura Hortons.